Hare Krishna. So, we welcome all of you for this first English reading session of the Krishna book. Today, we will read the complete chapter 1 of Krishna book because we missed reading yesterday. So, we will complete the chapter 1 in this session itself. All right. So, before we read Krishna book, we recite a prayer which is given in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and Madhya Leela 7.96. So you can chant with me. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshama. Krishna, 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 Pahimam. Ram Raghav, Ram Raghav, Ram Raghav, Rakshama. Krishna Keshav, Krishna Keshav, Krishna Keshav Pahimam. Okay, so now we will recite the pranam mantra of our founder Acharya of ISKCON, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who is also the author of Krishna book. So you can chant with me. Namaha Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So there are many devotees who have joined this group very recently. They might not be knowing how we are going to proceed. So for that reason, we will post a small video either by today or tomorrow where we'll be telling you how the pattern of the quiz will be with a live example. We'll also share a demo quiz which you can participate and try it out. So our first quiz will be on chapter number 1, that is scheduled for tomorrow, 24th June, Wednesday. The timings will be 8:30 p.m. to 9:15 p.m. The links for the Google form of this exam will be shared in your respective WhatsApp groups. You can use that link to participate at the scheduled time. Okay, so let's start reading Krishna book chapter 1. The title of this chapter is The Advent of Lord Krishna. So I'll keep sharing the PDF. You can watch it over here with me. I'll keep reading, and wherever there I feel that there is some clarification or some explanation required or some important point needs to be emphasized, I'll try to explain. We will try to contain our discussion only in the purview of Krishna book. We'll not uh, move to any other discussion. So we request you to please be attentive during the session. Thank you. Okay, so we begin from here. Once the world was overburdened by the unnecessary defense force of different kings, who were actually demons but were posing themselves as the royal order. At that time, the whole world became perturbed, and the predominating deity of this earth, known as Bhumi, went to see Lord Brahma to tell of her calamities due to the demoniac kings. Bhumi assumed the shape of a cow and presented herself before Lord Brahma with tears in her eyes. She was bereaved and was weeping just to invoke the Lord's compassion. She related the calamitous position of the earth, and after hearing this, Lord Brahma became much aggrieved and he at once started for the ocean of milk, where Lord Vishnu resides. Lord Brahma was accompanied by all the demigods headed by Lord Shiva, and Bhumi also followed. Arriving on the shore of the Milk Ocean, Lord Brahma began to pacify Lord Vishnu, who had formerly saved the earthly planet by assuming the transcendental form of a boar. So we know that Lord Varahadev had saved the planet Earth when it had fallen into the Garbhodak ocean, and that's what is being mentioned over here. In the Vedic mantras, there is a particular type of prayer called Purush Sukta. Generally, the demigods offer their obeisances unto Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by chanting the Purush Sukta. So, it's a special type of a prayer which is offered by the demigods to Lord Vishnu. It is understood herein that the predominating deity of every planet can see the Supreme Lord of this universe, Brahma, whenever there is some disturbance on his planet. And Brahma can approach the Supreme Lord Vishnu not by seeing him directly, but by standing on the shore of the ocean of milk. So Prabhupada is going to explain what is this ocean of milk. There is a planet within this universe called Shvetadip, and on that planet there is an ocean of milk. It is understood from various Vedic literatures that just as there is the ocean of salt water on this planet, there are various kinds of planets on there are various kinds of oceans on other planets. Somewhere there is an ocean of milk, somewhere there is an ocean of oil, and somewhere there are oceans of liquor and many other types of liquids. The Purush Sukta is the standard prayer which the demigods recite to appease the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shiro Dakshai Vishnu. Because he is lying on the ocean of milk, he is called Shiro Dakshai Vishnu. He is the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through whom all the incarnations within this universe appear. So, as we discuss ahead, we will discuss more about it, and Prabhupada will elaborate more upon this. That there are three Purusha avatars, and all the demigods went to the within this universe, which is named as Shwetadeep, and on that planet there is an ocean of milk, just like we have the ocean of salt water, and Shir in Hindi refers to milk. So the Lord Vishnu, who is lying on the ocean of milk, he is called Shirodakshai Vishnu. After all the demigods offered the Purush Sukta prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they apparently heard no response. Then Lord Brahma personally sat in meditation, and there was a message transmission from Lord Vishnu to Brahma. Brahma then broadcasts the message to the demigods. That is the system of receiving Vedic knowledge. The Vedic knowledge is first received by Brahma from the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the medium of the heart. As stated in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye, the transcendental knowledge of the Vedas was transmitted to Lord Brahma through the heart. Here also, in the same way, only Brahma could understand the message transmitted by Lord Vishnu, and he broadcast it to the demigods for their immediate action. Okay, so as far as we have now read, Lord Brahma, Bhumi Devi approached Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma, headed all the demigods and went to the Shwetadeep, along with Lord Shiva and all the demigods went to Shwetadeep, and they prayed by the special prayer called Purusha Sukta, but they did not hear anything. But then there was a transmission when Brahmaji sat down and prayed. So he has received the message within his heart. Now he is transmitting this message, broadcasting it for the other demigods. The message was this: the Supreme Personality of Godhead would appear on the earth very soon, along with his supreme powerful potencies, and as long as he remained on the earth planet to execute his mission of annihilating the demons and establishing the devotees, the demigods should also remain there to assist him. They should all immediately take birth in the family of the Jadu dynasty, wherein the Lord would also appear in due course of time. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself, Krishna, would personally appear as the son of Vasudev. Before his appearance, all the demigods, along with their wives, should appear in different pious families in the world just to assist the Lord in executing his mission. The exact word used here is tat priya artham, which means that demigods should appear on the earth in order to please the Lord. In other words, any living entity who lives only to satisfy the Lord is a demigod. The demigods were further informed that Ananta, the plenary portion of Lord Krishna, who is maintaining the universal planets by extending his millions of hoods, would also appear on earth before Lord Krishna's appearance. They were also informed that the external potency of Vishnu, that is Maya, with whom all the conditioned souls are enamored, would also appear by the order of the Supreme Lord just to execute his purpose. So, the message which was transmitted by Lord Brahma, it had primarily some instructions for the demigods that they should immediately take birth in the family of the Yadu dynasty because it is the very dynasty in which Lord Krishna is going to appear soon. And what is the purpose? Although Lord Krishna is complete in himself, he is Atmaram, yet they are supposed to take birth for Tat Priya Artham, which means that they should appear in order to please the Lord. And what is the mission of the Lord? The mission of the Lord is to annihilate the demons and establishing the devotees. Right. So this is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानम् अधर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजामि अहम्. So, in other words, then Prabhupada is giving a definition for who is a demigod. A person who lives only to satisfy the Lord is a demigod. And it was also informed to them that Lord Ananta, who is a plenary portion of Lord Krishna, and Maya, who is the external potency of Lord Vishnu, both will appear before the Lord to execute his purpose. After instructing and pacifying all the demigods as well as Bhumi with sweet words, Lord Brahma, the father of all Prajapatis or progenitors of universal population, departed for his own abode, the highest material planet called Brahmaloka. The leader of the Yadu dynasty, King Shurasen, was ruling over the country known as Mathur, wherein lies the city of Mathura, as well as the district known as Shursen, which was named after him. On the account of the rule of King Shursen, Mathura became the capital city of all the kings of Yadus. Mathura was also made the capital of the kings of Yadu dynasty because the Yadus were a very pious family and knew that Mathura is the place where Lord Sri Krishna lives eternally, just as he also lives in Dwarka. So here we need to note something that the leader of Yadu dynasty was King Shursen. And where was he ruling? The country's name was Mathur. Since here is A has a bar over it, so it is should be spelled as Mathur. And within that country known as Mathur, there was a city called Mathura, and Shursen was ruling over a district or a country called Mathur, where there was a city Mathura and also a district called Shursen, which was named after him. So Mathura was made the capital of the Yadu dynasty because they were very pious and they knew that Lord Krishna lives here eternally. Okay, so now the discussion changes, the storyline changes a little bit. Once upon a time, Vasudev, the son of Shursen, just after marrying Devaki, was going home on his chariot with his newly wedded wife. The father of Devaki, known as Devak, had contributed a sufficient dowry because he was very affectionate towards his daughter. He had contributed hundreds of chariots completely decorated with gold equipment. At that time, Kamsa, the son of Ugrasena, in order to please his sister Devaki, had voluntarily taken the reins of the horses of Vasudev's chariot and was driving. According to the custom of Vedic civilization, when a girl is married, the brother takes the sister and brother in law to their home. Because the newly married girl may feel too much separation from her father's family, the brother goes with her until she reaches her father in law's house. So, something important to be noted here that Vasudev is the son of Shursen, right? And Devaki is the daughter of Devak, and Kamsa is the son of Ugrasen. And ordinarily, we know that Kamsa and Devaki were brother sister, but they have different fathers. So how is it possible? So this means actually Devak and Ugrasen were brothers. Therefore, Kamsa was a cousin of Devaki. He was not her real brother, but he was taking the chariot by he was himself driving the chariot, which was on which Vasudev and Devaki were going to Vasudev's home. Another important thing we can see over here is that here it is just written Vasudev. It's not written Vasudev. Had it been Vasudev, you would have seen a dash like this as you seen Shursen, right? So Vasudev means the father of Lord Krishna, means the husband of Devaki, and Vasudev means one who is the son of Vasudev, right? So Vasudev is Lord Krishna's father, and Vasudev is Lord Krishna. Okay. The full dowry contributed by Devak was as follows: 400 elephants fully decorated with golden garlands, 15,000 decorated horses, and 1800 chariots. He also arranged for 200 beautiful girls to follow his daughter. The Kshatriya system of marriage, still current in India, dictates that when a Kshatriya is married, a few dozen of the bride's young girlfriends, in addition to the bride, go to the house of king. The followers of the queen are called maidservants, but actually they act as the friends of the queen. This practice is prevalent from time immemorial, traceable at least to the time before the advent of Lord Krishna 5000 years ago. So Vasudev brought home another 200 beautiful girls along with his wife Devaki. So a question might come to somebody's mind that why this practice of dowry? So we have already read before that why did Devak give so much dowry? Because he was very affectionate towards his daughter. It is just because of his love for Devaki that he wanted to give this. But the practice of dowry is not it's not an obligation. It was just out of a person's free will, his love for his daughter, that he gave it, right? So while the bride and bridegroom were passing along on the chariot, there were different kinds of musical instruments playing to indicate the auspicious moment. There were conchs, bugles, drums, and kettle drums combined together. They were vibrating a nice concert. The procession was passing very pleasingly, and Kamsa was driving the chariot. When suddenly there was a miraculous sound vibrated from the sky, which especially announced to Kamsa, Kamsa, you are such a fool. You are driving the chariot of your sister and your brother in law, but you do not know that the eighth child of this sister will kill you. Kamsa was the king of Ugrasena of the Bhoj dynasty. So we have already read that King Shursen was the father of Vasudev, and they belong to the Yadu dynasty. And Kamsa, who was the son of Ugrasen, was from the Bhoj dynasty. It is said that Kamsa was the most demoniac of all the Bhoj dynasty kings. Immediately after hearing the prophecy from the sky, he caught hold of Devaki's hair and was just about to kill her with his sword. Vasudev was astonished at Kamsa's behavior, and in order to pacify the cruel, shameless brother in law, he began to speak as follows with great reason and evidence. He said, My dear brother in law Kamsa, you are the most famous king of the Bhoj dynasty, and people know that you are the greatest warrior and a valiant king. How is it that you are so infuriated that you are prepared to kill a woman who is your own sister at this auspicious time of her marriage? Why should you be so much afraid of death? Death is already born along with your birth. From the very day you took your birth, you began to die. Suppose you are 25 years old, that means you have already died 25 years. Every moment, every second, you are dying. Why then should you be so much afraid of death? Final death is inevitable. You may die either today or in 100 years. You cannot avoid death. Why should you be so much afraid? Actually, death means annihilation of the present body. As soon as the present body stops functioning and mixes with the five elements of material nature, the living entity within the body accepts another body according to his present actions and reactions. So, Vasudev is trying to explain to Kamsa that why are you afraid of death if this prophecy has pre-warned you about it? So why are you afraid of death? This death is inevitable. You cannot live forever, right? So death exactly means the annihilation of the present body. And when this body stops functioning, it mixes into the five elements of material nature, what are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So now he'll explain further how exactly this transmigration of the soul happens to the another body. So it is just like when a man walks on the street, he puts forward his foot, and when he is confident that his foot is situated on sound ground, he lifts the other foot. In this way, one after another, the bodies change and the soul transmigrates. See how the plant worms change from one twig to another so carefully. Similarly, the living entity changes his body as soon as the higher authorities decide on his next body. As long as the living entity is conditioned within this material world, he must take material bodies one after another. His next particular body is offered by the laws of nature according to the actions and reactions of this life. So, whatever body he's going to get next is will be decided on the basis of the actions and reactions of this life, right? So, Vasudev has given first the example of a man walking on a street and then how the plant worms change from one twig to another. Now, the another example that explains Vasudevji explains to Kamsa, this body is exactly like one of the bodies which we always see in dreams. During our dream of sleep, we create so many bodies according to mental creation. We have seen gold and we have also seen a mountain. So, in a dream, we can see a golden mountain by combining the two ideas. Sometimes in dreams, we see that we have a body which is flying in the sky, and at that time, we completely forget our present body. Similarly, these bodies are changing. When you have one body, you forget the past body. During a dream, we may contact with so many new kinds of bodies, but when we are awake, we forget them all. And actually, these material bodies are the creation of our mental activities. But at the present moment, we do not recollect our past bodies. So Vasudevji is explaining by virtue of example of our dreaming in the night. So when we are in a dream, we forget our present body and we are completely immersed into that experience of the dream. And that's what is happening with us, that we have forgotten all the past bodies, and the current situation in which we are is also a dreamlike situation, because the living entity, because the spirit soul does not have an idea that this is not its real position. So as we progress reading Krishna book, all these points will get nicely explained and elaborated. So Prabhupada has given Vasudevji has given three examples: walking of a man on a street, plant worms, and then dreaming. So now he starts telling about the nature of mind. How does this body transition happen? The nature of the mind is flickering. Sometimes it accepts something and immediately rejects the same thing. Accepting and rejecting is the process of the mind in contact with the five objects of sense gratification: form, taste, smell, sound, and touch. So we have five senses: eyes, nose, tongue, ears, and skin. And whatever we take input from these five senses are called the five objects of sense gratification. For example, the eyes want to see a beautiful form, the tongue wants to taste a beautiful, wonderful food, right? The nose wants to smell wonderful perfume, or perfumes are like good odor. So this is the the mind is in contact with these five kind of sense objects of five objects of sense gratification. It is getting data from the senses, and in its speculative way, the mind comes in touch with the objects of sense gratification, and when the living entity desires a particular type of body, he gets it. Therefore, the body is an offering by the laws of material nature. The living entity accepts a body and comes out again into the material world to enjoy or suffer according to the construction of the body. So, what is being explained over here is that the mind comes in touch with objects of sense gratification, and the living entity gets a desire for a particular type of a body. For example, if you see a person is very rich, he is very living a very flamboyant life, the mind gets that inspiration, that desire. I also want to become like this. So that desire comes in the desire, the living entity desires, then subsequently the material nature offers him a life of that kind, a body of that kind. The living entity accepts a body and comes out again into the material world to enjoy or suffer according to the construction of the body. Unless we have a particular type of body, we cannot enjoy or suffer according to our mental proclivities inherited from the previous life. The particular type of body is actually offered to us according to our mental condition at the time of death, right? So this is the criteria. Whatever mental condition we have at the time of death will, according to that, we will get our next body. And what kind of mental condition we will have at the time of death? Whatever we think throughout our life, whatever attachments we have throughout our life, only they will be, we will be able to remember only those. But if we develop a habit, inclination to remember God, then that will be our final destination. So, the luminous planets like the sun, moon, or stars reflect themselves in different types of reservoirs like water, oil, or ghee. The reflection moves according to the movement of the reservoir. The reflection of the moon is on the water, and the moving water makes the moon also appear to be moving. But actually, the moon is not moving. Similarly, by mental concoction, the living entity attains different kinds of bodies, although actually he has no connection with such bodies. But on account of illusion, being enchanted by the influence of Maya, the living entity thinks that he belongs to a particular type of a body. That is the way of conditioned life. So that's what Srila Prabhupada is explaining, that if you have a reservoir and you have a reflection of the moon, if wind moves, the reflection moves, but moon is actually still, right? It is not moving. Similarly, the although it it seems, due to Maya, it seems that the living entity thinks that he belongs to a particular type of body, although he has no connection with such body. He will change it and go to the next, right? And this happens in conditional life. That means not in liberated life, in conditioned life, when one is in the material world under the influence of material energy. Suppose a living entity is now in a form of a human form of body. He thinks that he belongs to the human community or a particular country or a particular place. He identifies himself in that way and unnecessarily prepares for another body which is not required by him. Such desires are mental concoctions. Such and mental concoctions are the cause of different types of bodies. The covering influence of material nature is so strong that the living entity is satisfied in whatever body he gets, and he identifies with that body with great pleasure. Therefore, I beg to request you to not be overwhelmed by the dictation of your mind and body. So, if we see, this is a very emphatic statement given by Srila Prabhupada, that the influence of Maya, the material nature, is so strong that living entity, although it might be suffering, if we see a pig, it's a living entity, a spirit soul which is living in the body of a pig. But what it is eating stool and feeling very happy. It identifies with that, it is satisfied in the body he gets, and he identifies with that body with great pleasure. So that is the covering influence of Maya. So as we move ahead, we will study that there are two types of Mayas. So we'll study it ahead. Vasudev thus requested Kamsa not to be envious of his newly married sister. One should not be envious of anyone, because envy is the cause of fear both in this world and in the next, when one is before Yamaraj. Vasudev appealed to Kamsa on behalf of Devaki, stating that she was his younger sister. He also appealed at an auspicious moment at the time of marriage. A younger sister or brother is supposed to be protected as one's child. The position is overall so delicate, Vasudev reasoned, that if you kill her, it will go against your high reputation. So Vasudev is trying his level best to convince Kamsa. In this way, Vasudev tried to pacify Kamsa by good instruction. One thing I just wanted to explain over here, that what is the cause of fear in this world? Envy is the cause, because we feel insecure and we want to attain the position, the characteristics of another person. So envy is the cause of fear in this world and in the next, right? So in this way, Vasudev tried to pacify Kamsa by good instruction as well as by philosophical discrimination. But Kamsa was not to be pacified because his association was demoniac. Because of his demonic association, he was a demon, although born in a very high royal family. So he was born as a son of Ugrasen, who belonged to the Bhoj dynasty. But because he had demon friends, and we will study ahead that what were the name of his friends. Uh, so therefore he became demoniac in nature because his friends were demoniac. So it's a saying in English: a man is known by the company he keeps. So if you tell me what kind of friends you have, I can tell what kind of person you are. So therefore, we should choose our association very, very carefully. Okay. A demon never cares for any good instruction. He is just like a determined thief. One can give him moral instruction, but it will not be effective. Similarly, those who are demoniac or atheistic by nature can hardly assimilate any good instruction, however authorized it may be. That is the difference between demigods and demons. Those who can accept good instruction and try to live their lives in that way are called demigods, and those who are unable to take such good instruction are called demons. So there's a wonderful difference highlighted by Srila Prabhupada, that a demon will not be able to accept good instruction. He will be just like a determined thief. It will not be effective if you tell him. But the nature of a demigod is that he will accept good instruction and try to live their life accordingly. Okay, so we have received one information about a demigod, that one who lives his life in such a way to please the Supreme Lord, and another definition has been given over here. Failing in his attempt to pacify Kamsa, Vasudev wondered how he would protect his wife Devaki. When there is imminent danger, an intelligent person should try to avoid the dangerous position as far as possible. But if, in spite of endeavoring by all intelligence, one fails to avoid the dangerous position, there is no fault on his part. One should try his best to execute his duties, but if the attempt fails, he is not at fault. Vasudev thought of his wife as follows: for the present, let me save the life of Devaki. Then later on, if there are children, I shall see how to save them. He further thought, if in the future I get a child who can kill Kamsa, just as Kamsa is thinking, then both Devaki and the child will be saved, because the law of providence is inconceivable. So Vasudev had this confidence that if this is a prophecy, so then it will come true, because the law of providence is inconceivable, and therefore he is trying his best. But now, somehow or other, let me save the life of Devaki. So he's a very intelligent person. There is no certainty how a living entity contacts a certain type of body, just as there is no certainty how a blazing fire comes in contact with a certain type of wood in the forest. When there is a forest fire, it is experienced that blazing fire sometimes leaps over one tree and catches another by the influence of the wind. Similarly, a living entity may be very careful in the matter of executing his duties, but it is still very difficult for him to know what type of body he is going to get in the next life. Maharaj Bharat was very faithfully executing the duties of self realization, but by chance he developed temporary affection for a deer, and in his next life he had to accept the body of a deer. So, something very important being explained over here. that if you see a forest fire, the wind, by the influence of the wind, the blazing fire keeps expanding and it leaps over trees, right? So therefore, it's not certain that how a living entity contacts certain type of body. It's very difficult to ascertain this fact. And the example is given of Maharaj Bharat, that Maharaj Bharat was executing his duties of self-realization very nicely, but he by chance he developed temporary affection for a deer, and that's why he had to become a deer in his next life, right? So it's very difficult to ascertain what kind of a life one is going to get, but by deliberation, as Prabhupada will explain how we can actually come to understand what should be done. Okay. Vasudev, after deliberating on how to save his wife, began to speak to Kamsa with great respect. Although Kamsa was the most sinful man, sometimes it happens that a most virtuous person like Vasudev has to flatter a person like Kamsa, a most vicious person. That is the way of all diplomatic transactions. Although Vasudev was deeply aggrieved, he smiled outwardly. He addressed the shameless Kamsa in that way because he was so atrocious. Vasudev said to Kamsa, "My dear brother in law, please consider that you have no danger from your sister. You are awaiting some danger because you have heard a prophetic voice in the sky. But the danger is to come from the sons of your sister who are not present now, and who knows, there may or may not be sons in the future. Considering all this, you are safe for the present, nor is there cause of fear from your sister. If there are any sons born of her, I promise that I shall present all of them to you for necessary action." So now Vasudevji has played his final trump card, and he said to Kamsa that you leave Devaki, you are not, you need not fear from her. It's only her children, only the eighth son, which is actually going to be harmful to you as per the prophecy. So, and now let's see. Kamsa knew the value of Vasudev's word of honor. He was convinced by his argument. For the time being, he desisted from the heinous killing of his sister. Thus, Vasudev was pleased and praised the decision of Kamsa. In this way, he returned to his home. So finally, Kamsa relented, and he thought that Vasudev is a man of great, is a man of his word of. He will keep his word of honor. So therefore, he let go of this heinous killing of his sister. Each year thereafter, in due course of time, Devaki gave birth to a child. Thus, she gave birth to eight male children as well as one daughter. When the first son was born, Vasudev kept his word of honor and immediately brought the child before Kamsa. It is said that Vasudev was very much elevated and famous for his word of honor, and he wanted to maintain his fame. Although it was very painful for Vasudev to hand over the newly born child, Kamsa was very glad to receive him. But he became a little compassionate with the behavior of Vasudev. This event is very exemplary. For a great soul like Vasudev, there is nothing considered to be painful in the course of discharging one's duties. A learned person like Vasudev carries out his duties without hesitation. On the other hand, a demon like Kamsa never hesitates in committing any abominable action. It is said, therefore, that a saintly person can tolerate all kinds of miserable conditions of life. A learned man can discharge his duties without awaiting favorable conditions of life. Sorry, I just missed it. It is said, therefore, that a saintly person can tolerate all kinds of miserable conditions of life. A learned man can discharge his duties without awaiting favorable circumstances. A heinous person like Kamsa can act in any sinful way, and a devotee can sacrifice everything to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, this is a very nice learning from this chapter, that what is the characteristic of different kinds of people. And in the last, it is said a devotee can sacrifice everything to satisfy the Supreme Lord. And that's what we see in the life of Srila Prabhupada, that although he could retire easily, he could have a wonderful life, but still he took so much pain traveling to America, doing so much service for his spiritual master to preach this message of Lord Krishna. And at such advanced age, he traveled the complete world 14 times. So he sacrificed all comforts of his life just to please, just to satisfy the Supreme Lord Krishna. All right. Kamsa became satisfied by the action of Vasudev. He was surprised to see Vasudev keeping his promise and being compassionate upon him and pleased, he began to speak as follows: My dear Vasudev, you need not present this child to me. I am not in danger from this child. I have heard that the eighth child born of you and Devaki will kill me. Why should I accept this child unnecessarily? You can take him back. When Vasudev was returning home with his firstborn child, although he was pleased by the behavior of Kamsa, he could not believe in him because he knew that Kamsa was uncontrolled. An atheistic person cannot be firm in his word of honor. One who cannot control the senses cannot be steady in his determination. So, very nice statement made by Srila Prabhupada that if you want determination in life, you have to learn controlling your senses. Right. The great politician Chanakya Pandit said, Never put your trust in a diplomat or a woman. Those who are addicted to unrestricted sense gratification can never be truthful, nor can they be trusted with any faith. At that time, the great sage Narad came to Kamsa. He was informed of Kamsa's becoming compassionate to Vasudev and returning his firstborn child. Narad was very eager to accelerate the descent of Lord Krishna as soon as possible. He therefore informed Kamsa that in Vrindavan, personalities like Nanda Maharaj and all the other cowherd men and their wives, and on the other side, Vasudev, his father Shursen, and all his relatives born in the family of Vrishni of the Yadu dynasty, along with their friends and well wishers, were actually demigods. Narad warned Kamsa to be careful of them. Since Kamsa and his friends and advisors were all demons, demons are always afraid of the demigods. After being thus informed by Narad about the appearance of the demigods in different families, Kams at once became very much alarmed. He understood that since the demigods had already appeared, Lord Vishnu must be coming soon. He at once arrested both his brother in law Vasudev and Devaki and put them behind prison bars. So we see that before this, Kamsa was very happy. Ki, I don't need this son, you take him back. But Narad Muni wanted to accelerate, to expedite the descent of Lord Krishna. And therefore, he came and told Kansa that Nand Maharaj, all these personalities who are in Vrindavan, who are born in Vrishni dynasty, Vrishni of the Jalu dynasty, uh, so they were all actually demigods. And Kamsa knew that if demigods have come, then Lord Vishnu will be coming soon. And therefore, he immediately put Vasudeva and Devaki behind prison bars. Within the prison, shackled in iron chains, Vasudeva and Devaki gave birth to a male child year after year. And Kamsa, thinking each of the babies to be the incarnation of Vishnu, killed them one after another. He was particularly afraid of the eighth child, but after the visit of Narad, he came to the conclusion that any child might be Krishna. Therefore, it was better to kill all the babies who took birth from Devaki and Vasudev. So we can see that he's an atheistic person, an uncontrolled uh, person. So a moment before, he sent Vasudev that I don't need your child, and now he has resorted to killing all the babies of Vasudeva and Devaki. This action of Kamsa is not very difficult to understand. There are many instances in the history of the world of persons in the royal order who have killed their father, brother, or whole family and friends for the satisfaction of their ambitions. I think we all know that history is evident, even the modern history or in previous times, ages, that such things have happened. There is nothing astonishing about this, for the members of the demoniac, greedy royal order can kill anyone for their nefarious ambitions. Kamsa was made aware of his previous birth by the grace of Narad. He learned that in his previous birth he had been a demon of the name Kal Nemi, and that he had been killed by Vishnu. Having now taken his birth in the Bhoj family, he decided to become the deadly enemy of the Yadu dynasty. Krishna was going to take birth in that family, and Kans was very much afraid that he would be killed by Krishna, just as he had been killed in his last birth. So Narad Muni had told Kansa that your previous birth you were Kal Nemi, and you were killed in the previous life by Vishnu. So now he was born in the Bhoj dynasty, so he decided that he will become a deadly enemy of Yadu dynasty because Lord Krishna was going to take birth in that family. He first of all imprisoned his father, Ugrasen, because he was the chief among the Yadu, Bhoj, and Andhak dynasties, and he also occupied the kingdom of Shurasen, Vasudev's father. He declared himself the king of all such places. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the first chapter of Krishna, the advent of Lord Krishna. So we have completed the first chapter. Tomorrow, that's Wednesday, we will have the quiz for this chapter. We will today or tomorrow we will post a small video and a demo quiz in the WhatsApp group where you can participate and check how the quiz that is going to come tomorrow evening, how it will be. Apart from this, a very important information for everybody that we know that most of many devotees are connected to your respective ISKCON temples and you might be attending Mangala Aarti. So this information is not for you, but we have many other devotees who are who have joined new or might not be attending any specific temple programs. So for the pleasure of all devotees, we keep Mangala Aarti every morning 5:15 a.m. to 5:45 a.m. One devotee will perform the aarti, another will sing, and the meeting link will be shared on the WhatsApp group. So if you feel you are interested, then you can join us. Or if you are attending your respective ISKCON temple Mangala Aartis, then no problem, you can be a part of that. This invitation is for those devotees who might not be attending. All right. So thank you very much, and we would like to end this session with a short kirtan. So we'll do kirtan for 2 to 3 minutes, for maximum 5 minutes, and then we'll close. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Rukmini Dwarkadhish, Jayo Rukmini Dwarkadhish, Rukmini Dwarkadhish, Jayo Rukmini Dwarkadhish, Jayo Gauranitai, 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 Jayo Gauranitai, Jayo Jagannath, Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladeva, Jai Subhadra, Jagannath Swami Nayana Pathgami, Nayana Pathgami Bhavatu me, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Srila Prabhupada, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. So we thank all of you for participating and attending this session, and we will shortly send you a demo quiz on the WhatsApp group either today or tomorrow, and an accompanying video, a YouTube video where you can watch the intricacies, the informations that you need to take care of in while participating in the quiz, how you're going to get your result. Every information will be shared in that video with the live session, with a demo. So thank you very much, and we wish you all the best for tomorrow's quiz. And if you have any doubts about today's discussion, or I would say reading session, you can post us comments. You can write in the comment section. We will try to answer your queries in the upcoming sessions. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.